Now let's spend a little bit of time looking at the Herfindahl-Hirschman index. And this index is very popular. The purpose of using the index is to select the number of stocks that can give you the effective outcome. We have discussed that in order to construct a passive, all right, or the mimicking index portfolio, so either you can use the full replication of that means that you buy all the stocks in the index, but this is very costly. So another alternative way is that we can select some of them, right? It's called stratified sampling or random sampling, or the representatives uh, equity inside the group. But the question is that how many of them we should select that it can achieve the same effectiveness as a full replication. That's the reason we have to use some other methodology for us to select the appropriate number of stock that can replicate that index. This HHI, Herfindahl-Hirschman index, is very simple and it's very powerful. The formulation, interesting, is very straightforward, is the sum of all the individual stocks weight squared. Now square is a quadratic form, just like variance. Variance is the deviation square, and then this is very similar to that. Mathematically, the quadratic formulation, all right, can really catch the dynamic variation. Therefore, the square term of the weight, the sum of them actually can provide some kind of benchmark to determine the number of stocks by inverse of that. All right, so you're using 1 over that index. Now let's see some example to see how do we calculate that, and then we discuss this index more in detail. Now suppose we want to mimic an index and they have 50 stocks. So since we don't want to use the entire 50, so how many stocks and who they are we should use? So the first step is that we select the first 5 largest cap stocks. All right. So because we know that at least that the first 5 we have to have. Then we calculate the weight of those 5. They are 8.9%, 8%, 6.5, 5.9, and 5.3% respectively. Now since these put together, all right, and it's only 5 stocks, right? But we still have another 45 stocks. The remaining weight of those 45 stocks is about 65.4%. And however, we need to calculate is the square of those weights. So the first 5, we take the square of each one, all right? Say like the 0.089 square and so on. We got those square of weights for the first 5, and then we also need to get the weight, the square weight, all right, the square of all this weights for the remaining 45 stocks. And then suppose we calculate that is equal to 14.5 1.405%, and then we add together is 0.3889, and the reciprocal of that we got 26, which is the effective number of stocks. So the Herfindahl-Hirschman index suggests that given those weight, we need to do is to select 26 stocks, including the first 5. All right, so we can rank that, and these 26 stocks, it will achieve the same diversification effect as the underlying asset of 50 stocks. So this is the way that we can easily to do is to identify the effective number of the stock in the index that we can use to create our own, for example, ETF or other mutual fund. Another issue, actually knowledge point in this reading, talk about the migration of stocks in the indexing. All right, migration of stock in the indexing. So what does that mean here? Now, if you remember previously, we talked about the portfolio style, and this Morningstar talked about the style portfolio. We have 3x3 nine column or 9 cell box here to talk about different category of portfolio. For example, we have this called large cap value. Now, sometimes over the time, the individual stock inside each portfolio, you see here we got 9 portfolio, and as time goes by, they could change. For example, could be there's a stock in the mid cap value fund. Now, because the growth of the firm, they have a more capitalization. People put more money, so they become a large cap, right? Gradually toward a large cap. Therefore, there's a possible had a migration from one category to another one, meaning that is increase change or migrate from one index to another index. Consequently, then we need to handle this situation. How do we supposed to do if there is some stocks migrate from one category to the other one? In this case, it happens all the time, right? So when I do the indexing portfolio, so it's possible for the stock when in one year and then migrate to the next one, a better category in the next year. So one way is that you set up a buffering in the first place. So in other words, you establish a range around the break point that is defined whether the stock belongs to one index or other one. So you give a little bit range, and so you put those stocks into this range, and then you create this called a buffer zone. So you put these target firm, it's possible for them to migrate to the next category and put that stock in the buffer zone. All right, so they stay there in the current index until the stocks actually finally move out to the next category. Another possible way is packaging. All right, packaging. Packaging means that you're splitting the stock position into multiple parts. For example, a stock is currently on the mid-cap index. If its capitalization increase, they mean they get more capital, and breaches the break point between the mid-cap and large-cap index. So what you do here is a portion of the total holding, which is and the increase of that capital, that portion transfer to the large cap, but the remaining, the original one, still rest in the mid-cap index. All right. So it actually is a fraction or portion of the stock position moved to the next category, and the remaining still stay in the old category. So this is the second method.